Time for a weekly outlook. Okay. This week, the initial idea is going to be pretty simple. Um, I'm really having a tough time making a plan for where we might be end of the week, but um, what we're going to be looking at least to start the week, I think is very very simple. You had an inside week on NQ. Relative weakness, which is an issue, but we'll see what happens. ES relative strength, Russell relative strength, the Dow relative strength. So not an inside week on ES, but the ideas are pretty similar. So overall trend remains up. Weekly is still up. Obviously, weekly is balanced on NQ for now. Last week we spent decent amount of time. Well, I guess you could classify last week as like a look above and fail. At least, if we're looking at end of the session on Thursday and then what we did Friday. But the main focus is going to be like, what do we do up against last week's main distribution? And I'm going to include the Friday or the prior Friday from the 22nd, only because the end of the session there overlaps value with basically most of last week. This is what last week's profile looks like, including that prior Friday, right? So up until we got that sell-off on Friday, right, this is what it looked like. You attempted a break above value, failed it, and traversed all the way back down to the lower end. So we still maintain this position of, at least going into this week, of sideways within this range until otherwise. Most of the levels don't change much. I've adjusted some of them. So here they are here, marking off sort of the lower end. I've chose to sort of leave this out and sort of chose to focus primarily on Friday's value area low and lowermost shelf. So we'll work with that, and then the upper end of this distribution from last week, sort of the shelf and the composite, and the uppermost shelf here, right? Basically near Friday's highs. So we'll sort of treat this as like, how do we work up against this, and where do we establish value, right? And for now, until this changes, we're going to be short up against this and long up against this. And tomorrow's a shortened day, and tomorrow's stock market's closed. Future markets remain open for a little bit, but completely range bound. We've seen both ends and staying rotational for now. So unless I'm not long here, I usually take Sundays off, or short up against this. Really no play for me right now. I won't get into NQ though, because we already did like a little bit of a look below and fail. We'll get into sort of a little bit of the nuance there and sort of how I would go about playing it now that we've already seen it. But yeah, I'm really just looking to get long up against this if we are above it, right? If I see what I want to see, I'm going to be looking to get long up against that or this. For below this, I have no reason to be trying to knife catch the thing, right? I really have no interest trying to knife catch even down here at some of the levels we have below us. I'm willing to, if we are going to break down, I am willing to wait and give them a little bit of confirmation before I try to get long, meaning, I'm not going to be limit long size here. Could I be limit long small? Sure. Nothing meaningful. When I do put on size, I'm going to have to see, whether it's excess down here, I guess value established back above a level that we're looking at. Then I can go into the next session saying, okay, we did this today up against this level. Now let's take a look at this session's levels and say, what can I use here to now be potentially a little more bullish with a little more confidence going forward. So that's sort of the approach I'm taking with anything lower, as especially as a permable. So not really crazy to get long on dips, so I'm willing to wait for a little bit of confirmation. NQ, similar story. This is the bulk of last week's distribution, including that prior Friday. You broke away from value on Thursday and then the ETH sold, traded back into value, and you saw a full traversal, right? On Friday, it looked pretty awful in that this is what it looked like going into Friday. Once you lost this like 490s, you were offering from it quite a bit. So even I got short up against 490s, down to 400. Thankfully, I took most of them off at 400. But, with this included now, you have the lowermost shelf there. So that's what I'll be watching. You had an inside week. That's that low there in the 390s. And we already got a little bit of a look below and fail. So, yeah, I'd love to wait till Tuesday till we get some real volume. Tuesday New York session, when we get some real volume in. So I'll, as much as I love this setup, the inside week look below and fail, or inside day look below and fail, I missed it. I'm gonna wait till Tuesday and sort of see where we open, and then where we are, how we work up against these levels here. But the idea is the same. It's just sideways within this until otherwise. Okay. So, if we're going to be below this and we can get a short opportunity, sure, for you people like to short, that's probably where you like to do it. I may join, I likely won't. I really get in on the short side, but it allows me to be patient, right? Not going to be looking to knife catch anything. We have levels here, sure. Not really the environment to be trying, so I don't think when we're breaking down from an inside week. But like I said, if we do get a bid off any of these levels or anything below it, I'm willing to wait for that little bit of excess made value established back above a level. Now using that MGI to go long up against, right? So we'll see where Tuesday opens. Hopefully it's somewhere close by, and sort of don't have to change the plan too drastically. But for now, just sideways within this until otherwise. That is what I'll work with. Already made a decent buck today. We swung long off of our 430, 440, took him off at 540, or took half out at 540. The other half I got stopped out break even. I really had no control over else. It was away out of the house at that point. Yeah, we'll see what we do up against this. And if we're going to be breaking out or breaking down from an inside week, I would not fade it until we trade back into the range, right? Or until I see more of that MGI and have a little more confidence to work off of some other levels. So that's the plan for this week, is what do we do up against last week's main distribution. Other levels are really, I don't think, inconsequential. Like, I'm not looking to like dip by crazy size and any of these down here, right? The bigger picture idea, especially on NQ, is still, this is like the one big balance we're working with. And you have, now this is our main distribution here. You have two little pockets here that we were able to, we got the dip by off of the 050s, right? Nearly bottom take the thing. But it wasn't something I did with crazy size or anything. So for now, we've been working with these small little distributions and sort of the day-to-day levels that we come up with. But the overarching idea is this, and last Thursday we offered up into the 800s. So yeah, I would not be surprised if this gets a full traversal down into the lower end, or actually the lower end here, right? Pour lows down here and maybe get a look under, and we'll see what happens after that. But that's probably for another week, hopefully. And so for now, we've been working with really just these small little distributions as sort of guidance within this overarching balance. And I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to keep doing going forward. Yes, similar story, right? Although they've now traded back into that. They've left this lower distribution, right? You had a risk of accepting back into this, but ended up holding. Right, trading back above, trading back into this distribution here, this multi-day balance here. Now back into that and trading sideways, then teased to break out, failed. Now back to the lower end. We'll see what happens this week. But I think the roadmap is pretty simple, and sort of where we want to see certain things. Will it happen? Maybe not, probably not. but we know where we can look for opportunities, what we can expect if the unexpected happens. Stay away or play the opposite direction. I try to keep it simple and play one direction. So if we do the unexpected or break down, I I stay away. Right, I know my place, and I don't try to put on size, go crazy, and keep it simple in that regard. Sometimes I feel like shorting, and there are those times where I'll play both long and short, but those sessions are rare. But we'll see what happens this week. I'm gonna keep it pretty simple. Just work off of last week's main distribution. I got nothing else. So have a great week, everyone.